did a video recently on he did the history of taxes, and it was really funny because he was trying to spin it as the government never intended to do an income tax kind of thing, and what he really ignored but proved was, in fact, taxing the rich works, and we've done it many times in this country, and it's what built the middle class. It's what paid for the Civil War, right? But it kind of backfired, so we started ignoring a bunch of stuff. But that's kind of his shtick now, is he is really, really upset about taxes because he's worth hundreds of millions of dollars, and he doesn't want to have to pay taxes on that, guys. That's so mean. He earned that money by selling his pyramid scheme. He sort of kind of semi got other people to work for him that he scammed. Those people worked really hard for him to have his $200 million, and he doesn't want to pay taxes on it, and he's really upset. He's done multiple videos about this, but here's one where he's bitching about Kamala's tax plan. So between yo-yoing, between screaming about the debt and that, you know, we're going to have a recession any minute, in between commercials where he sells you gold and other crap, here's him whining about Kamala's tax plan. I just thought this was hilarious. We're going to watch a couple clips of this and then be onward, but...
Elections have consequences, right? And this is what happens if Kamala Harris becomes a president. They have unveiled their tax plan of how much money they're going to take from you, and it's going to go to the U.S. government. By the way, when you hear this tax plan, we're going to break it down. Most people don't have time to go through this. We will in a very fast way, because here's what's going on. The constant narrative you hear is the wealthy don't pay their fair share in taxes, right? It's the poor that pay the taxes, but not the wealthy. Watch this. Bottom 50% of taxpayers in America versus the top 50%. What percentage of all the taxes in the U.S. do you think the bottom 50% pay? You ready? 2.3%. You know what the top 50% pays? 97.7%. Now you may...
Whoa. He loves this figure. Whoa. So the top 50%, the top 50 wealthiest people pay 97% of the tax. 97.7%. The bottom 50%, people making whatever it is, under whatever it is, 50-something thousand a year or less, they're paying only 2.3%. He loves that figure. They love to do that in total dollar amount. Percentage-wise...
Yeah, let's talk about the percentage of a person's income, you know.
They're paying a little bit more. And if we take out, and what you're totally ignoring here is he's just talking about income taxes. He's not talking about sales tax. He's not talking about consumption tax or payroll tax, just income tax. If you factor in all those other taxes, the poor pay a lot more percentage-wise than the rich. I also wanted to, so 2.3%, that's all they're paying in income tax, 2.3. I want to harp on that figure for 1 second here. Here is Statista, wealth distribution in the United States. The first quarter of 2024. Can you say that okay? Or should I blow it up a little bit? There we go. Bottom 50%, this little green arrow here. Bottom 50% of Americans have 2.5% of all the wealth in this country. That 2.3% doesn't really seem like it's off that much anymore, does it? As where the rest of this pie is the top 50%.
Well, there's that.
Gee, Pat,
I like them apples.
I wonder why the top 50% are paying a larger dollar amount, such a big larger dollar amount than the lower 50%. Could it be because they have all the fucking money? You can't tax people what they don't have. So you got to tax the rich because they got all the money. And when income inequality is this bad, this is the worst it's been, I think, period, but in this country at least. Yeah, when it's this bad, who else are you going to tax? You're going to tax people that have nothing? It's just hilarious to me that he doesn't understand this. I mean, you'd think he would get it, but he's just such an idiot. So I wanted to get that point because he loves that point. That's the big talking point they all use. Let's go to this point here. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. I don't want to watch this whole video because it's just him yelling at the camera for like 12 minutes.
Stuff. today. Okay, so if you get value out of this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. And before we go through the entire tax plan Kamala has, let's look at a few different things. Number one, yourself. If you own stocks, if you have money in the stock market, as of July 1st, 2024, the market cap of U.S. stock market was $55.2 trillion. In the last 30 years, the return has been roughly the S&P 500, 10.7%. 158 million Americans own stock. That's 61% of adults. The top 1% owns 54% of the stock. The top 10%.
Okay, I want to point this out. Of the stocks, he's talking about everybody who owns stocks. So that's you with your 401k, your IRA, whatever. Everybody owns stocks. He's talking about everybody.
Owns 89%. The bottom 90% owns only 11%, but the bottom 50% only owns 0.6%. So they don't have a lot of money in the market. Now watch, this whole thing when you look at the source of income by AGI percentile, this income source for people doing their returns, it's all returns, then you go to the top 1%, top 0.1%, et cetera, et cetera. Blue represents...
Because he takes forever to do this. So all returns, okay? The bottom 80%, almost all of their taxes are from wages. So he's just doing capital gains tax, what you own in stocks, and your income tax. That's it. That's all that's being really factored here. So wages is most of your income if you're in the bottom 80%. Then you have some in investment, some in retirement, and some in business stuff. As you go up to the top 1%, right, most of their income is from investments and businesses they own. That's how they make the most of their money. So that's what he's pointing out here. So he's going to get to this point where he's going to say, well, hey, this is unfair because most of their income is in investments. So by saying we're taxing now the capital gains on these investments more, which is what part of Kamala's plan is, well, now they're going to be paying all of their income into taxes. As opposed to right now, they're not paying until they sell these stocks. This gray area here. Let me move it back to when we had color. This yellow area here. They're not paying taxes on this until they sell it. And what most of them do is they never sell it. They borrow.
Right, they just hold it.
They hold it and they borrow money against it because they don't have to pay tax on that. They pay back that loan.
Yeah, you don't pay taxes on the loan, so they kind of can maneuver around it, at least to a very large extent.
Yeah, and then they pay back those loans, borrow again, live off that money, and then when they die, their children inherit it at a step-up cost basis, so their children owe no tax on it. It's called buy, borrow, die. It's a really great loophole for a rich person. You just buy a bunch of stocks and shit and businesses, and then inherit them to your kids, and you never have to pay tax. You just loan against it. It's a huge loophole.
Wait, can we say again? And what happens with that loan when you die?
Well, the loan you still owe it because the collateral will be there, and your kids will have to pay it off. But the beauty is they can loan against it still, because now they don't owe any tax on it. So it's a step up in basis. So the value of it goes incredibly up when you die.
So they pay the loan, and then they can just turn around and reborrow this money anyway.
Right. So if I have $100 million. So go ahead. You still there?
Well, so essentially, you're only kind of paying something back, you know?
You're never really, you're just paying the interest on the loan. You're never really paying tax on the loan.
Because it's like if I borrow something off of my credit card and I turn around and pay it only to just re-borrow it again, I didn't really pay it, you know?
Right. But the thing is that's the thing is you're instead of taking those assets out, now I don't have them anymore because I've cashed them in, and now I owe tax on that money. So I only get a percentage of it. The government gets another percent, right? The people get the other percent. Well, now, instead of doing that, I just leave it there, so I still own all this shit, and then I can borrow against it as collateral. And then when I die, that collateral gets a step up in basis, because my kids will now owe no taxes on it. So here's the deal. I have $100 million in investments that I've loaned against. Let's say I've loaned $20 million against it. Okay? When I die. Okay? Now that $100 million, 50 of it is money that I put in, and the other 50 is what it's grown. So the 50, half of it is money that's grown. It's subject to tax, to capital gains tax, right? Which I think right now is whatever 25%, something like that on that amount of money. So if I cashed that out, I had to pay that tax. So 50 million would have really only been whatever 35 something, right? And I would have lost all that stuff. But now I've died. My kids get that 100 million. But guess what? That 50 million that I owe taxes on, they don't owe taxes on it. They're counted as having 100 million cost basis, so they owe no tax on my death. So my kids owe no taxes. So now that 100 million, which was really only worth about whatever 85 to me after tax, to my kids is now worth 100 after tax. So they can loan against that extra 15 million. And yet they'll still owe the 20 million, or it'll be paid out of other parts of my estate or something like that, if that's what I left. But then they can borrow against that. So you're always just paying off these huge loans. And it doesn't matter because you're just making the monthly payment.
Right.
So you can live a multi-millionaire lifestyle and never have to give up any of your property or pay tax on it. I mean, if you could just borrow, in perpetuity on something you owned, right, you'd do it. And just slowly pay it off over time. That's what they're doing. But that's the thing, is now this is trying to close that loophole by saying, no, even if it's unrealized gains, we're going to tax you at the end of the year on the unrealized gains for that year. And he's pissed because right now, rich people aren't paying taxes on any of this yellow portion until they sell it. And that's why they never sell it. As where we're paying taxes on almost all of our income. If you're in the bottom 99%. Right? That's what he doesn't seem to get. Which is why it's so funny to me. So let me skip ahead of here. So he's making the argument, but he doesn't give you the context. So he's making it sound like these people are getting ripped off or something, and that's not what's happening.